Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. This week, David and I have a whole lot of theme park news to talk about, from Cedar Fair Six Flags merger to the Herschend Palace Entertainment merger, all the way into some fun types of questions, like what we expect the future of some specific parks to look like. Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. Hey, welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. It's like just after Memorial Day, which means we're in
It
daily
is.
op season. It's that time of year. One of my favorite parts of the year.
It is. And now I got to ask, Clete, hopeful. You want to dive
But
into
yeah,
that for a second? Want to tell
I'm
me what
I'm
that's all about?
hopeful. Yeah,
Okay.
I think when you're thinking about things, like anytime something is changing a lot, right? There's like you never know what's going to happen. And right now, the theme park industry
Yeah.
is changing a lot in like a million places. Like, think about the effects that the Six Flags Cedar Fair merger is going to have on the industry forever. I don't know what
That's
it's going to
called
be, but
foreshadowing.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. Yes, that is some good foreshadowing. Absolutely. So how's Cincinnati? I mean, the Reds are playing pretty well, but you know, where are
Still
we
beating
at?
the hard teams, losing against the easy teams.
That's right.
That's just
Absolutely.
how we roll.
Cincinnati Reds baseball.
So, unfortunately, there's a lot more bad teams than there are good teams. So, yeah, if you have a winning record against the good teams, it's really not going to get you anywhere in October.
We're
So, who knows?
the only team in the world that needs a harder schedule. Like, our schedule is just too easy. It's really coming back to bite us.
They like the Bengals. Just give some night games. The Bengals, there for a time, for a number of years. If you're a Bengals fan, you know that when the Bengals played on Monday night or Thursday night, anytime it was a nighttime game under the lights, you'd almost think they didn't sell footballs in Cincinnati. It was just the roughest thing for them to win a game at night. But they seem to have broken that for now. Heaven forbid it comes back.
Yeah. Well, David, I do want to say I recently made the grave mistake of beginning to pin trade at Walt Disney World.
And I would ask, what took you so long?
Well, I just really didn't want to get into it. I was like, this is a terrible idea, just because you know how it goes. You're collecting something, and But I think the way I did it, and maybe this is Clete's beginner's guide to pin trading, is just set a number of pins, pick a number, and that's the absolute most pins you are allowed to have. So for myself,
And then
it's
you exceed that.
well, in theory, no, but probably. So I just got 6 pins. They were in like this beginner's pin trading starting pack, and I didn't like any of them. But you don't need to. You're trading them, and then I've been just like meticulously trading them all. Right now, I have 5 Ariel Little Mermaid pins and 1 Ernesto de la Cruz pin. So got to diversify my portfolio a little bit. Get away
No
from all.
Gaston.
Oh man, I might get one if I saw a Gaston. That's for sure. For
Now,
sure.
let me dig into the past here a little bit. Are there
Okay.
any pins to High School Musical?
Oh, I'm sure. I don't
Oh,
know.
no! Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm getting my teenage Disney things mixed up. Descendants,
Oh
because there's a story behind that for Cleet. Are there any from Descendants?
no, once again, there probably are. There probably are some Descendants fans.
So why the uncomfortable laugh, Cleet?
Well, for those of you who wow. Okay, so I used to do theater in high school, and one of my roles in high school theater was as Ben in Descendants, and it was very fun. It was very fun. It was one of my favorite shows I ever did because the audience just ate it up, because the audience was like 7-year-olds,
Mm-hmm.
and they lost their minds for. It was the most interactive audience we've ever had at a show. Best, like they.
Now,
It was awesome. It was awesome.
the character of Ben, who was his girlfriend, his fiance, whatever the thing was, but who was the person that was trying to get him interested?
So at the beginning, his girlfriend is the daughter of Aurora, Sleeping Beauty's daughter,
Okay.
which I don't remember her actual name. Audrey, I think. But then throughout the story of Descendants, he of course falls in love with Mal, the daughter of
Mal, that's right.
Maleficent. And speaking of which, Maleficent in this production of
Yes.
Descendants, who is playing Maleficent?
That was kind of a touchy subject with me, especially with you and your thing here with Mal, because Mal did a face turn and she ended up eliminating or killing, I guess, if you will, Maleficent, who was played by my daughter.
Yeah.
Now, that wasn't easy to get over, and don't think I haven't tried. Hold things pretty high regards to that.
So is this?
Teenage whatever?
It's kind of my fault if you think about it. So I'm sorry about that. Sorry to cause the death
Yeah,
of your daughter. It's too bad. But okay. All right.
that
So
sounds remorseful.
yeah. I'm super bummed. But we got some theme park news to talk about this week.
We do.
Obviously,
It's rare because I mean here we are. We're at after Labor Day. I'm sorry, Memorial Day, and usually you read through the things, and it's usually kind of a dead time right now because everything's launched in the last couple of weeks, and the new roller coasters are having their first rides, and really there's not a whole lot to comment on. This week, notwithstanding, this past week there's just been a lot of news come out,
yes, there has.
and not a lot of it interesting, not all of it good, but we'll dive into some of that.
So the first thing I want to dive into is the not all of it good part, because I hate to say this, but Six Flags Cedar Fair, the new chain Six Flags, has announced some pretty major, pretty current layoffs that are
Hmm.
not to be taken lightly. So when the merger was getting approved, they said there would be a 10% reduction in full-time staff. And so far we just really hadn't seen that happen. We'd seen some reduction in full-time staff, especially in chefs. There was a lot of sous chefs that had lost their
Hmm.
job. But now it's really starting to hit the ground. They announced this week they're eliminating the role of the park president at every single park in the chain. They have said their plans for the state of California involve 135 full-time staff members being laid off, and that's before CGA closes and every full-time staff member
Yes.
there loses their job. So, David, what do we think? Where do we think this is headed? Is this scary, or is this just something we should have saw coming from the time the merger got announced?
Well, I think there's both sides. Honestly, when they announced there's going to be a 10% reduction, a lot of people thought it happened over time, and to an extent, it kind of has. Some people thought that maybe it happened through attrition. This person sees writing on the wall; they're going to seek their fortunes elsewhere. Eliminating the role of park president, I gotta say, that took me off guard because the now obviously some of the park presidents did get promoted to other positions, but the number and the talent that was laid off. I can't believe that the Storbeck, is that the guy who runs
Yeah.
park president for Knott's? He worked for Disney for 30 years and has worked for Cedar Fair or Six Flags, whatever you call it, Knott's Berry Farm for 9. You talk about a wealth of experience, knowledge, know-how in a park that's pretty important in the chain. And now,
Yeah.
not only has his role been eliminated, but he'll be gone within a couple days.
Yeah.
That's I guess the elimination of that role sort of took me off guard. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know what I was expecting. I was kind of expecting a lot of the redundant roles at the corporate level to be on the table. Obviously, you can't have two chief marketing officers or two chief operating officers. So I figured that would happen, but to eliminate as I've read, and I got to be honest, I haven't read a ton because there's just been so much information out there about that. How they're going to be going to a regional model. I think that's the term I heard, regional model.
Yep.
I don't I don't know how that I can't wrap my head around what that looks like.
Yeah. So when you're in like the corporate world, right? We all know this. Like, it's super helpful to have a face of
Hmm.
whatever you're doing internally. I'm not talking about a face for PR. I'm talking about a face so that if Kings Island says, "Hey, we're going to do this whole new thing. We know it's going to work. Trust us. I've had my people check. We are going to do, let's say it's Camp Snoopy. Camp
Hmm.
Snoopy's going to work. It's going to bring in all this revenue. We're going to make this investment." And then it happens, and the project has a project manager, and in order for the project to get done, that project manager is the guy who's responsible for it. If it doesn't get
Hmm.
done, if it's being delayed, it's his fault at the end of the day. And
Right.
that level of like accountability in the corporate world is super helpful. But that's also true at the park president level right now, right? Because if when Camp Snoopy opens, nobody is in that area of the park. Less families and kids are visiting because part of their favorite area, Planet Snoopy, is now gone.
Hmm.
That this didn't happen, but let's say it did. Now, Mike Kuntz, right, whoever the park president is
Right.
going to be held responsible for having made that decision and having executed in the ways that they chose to execute it. Because sure, maybe it's more practically it's the project manager's fault. He put them there. He gave them. So
Hmm.
I do worry very sincerely about the park's ability to have that same level of like accountability without a person who is the face.
Hmm.
But then again, right, if the way things are really changing is okay, now instead of a park president of Kings Island, we're going to have a park president that's over Kings Island, Worlds of Fun, and Six Flags St. Louis. That's one president over all three of those. Maybe then you can keep that accountability there through that. It just does
Mm.
seem like it's way harder to do that. I mean, we're talking about these people with tremendous talent. We're talking about getting laid off. Would if you asked them, "Hey, could you do 3 times the amount of work you're doing?" They'd probably say no. And these are
I
really
agree.
talented, some of the best people in the industry. So it's really a little bit nerve wracking to me, but also, like I said, I'm hopeful. I do like the
Yeah.
idea that corporate efficiencies can lower prices and can allow them to spend more money on investments and can allow them to like just spend more money making the guest experience better, paying their employees that they are keeping more fair living wages. I'm not saying it's all bad. I just do think this is one move in particular that has me with a question mark on my face.
Uh, and there's going to be a number of things that come up that, in my mind, this is Six Flags acknowledging that there's going to be a couple dark years to get through this
Yeah.
transition period. It's going to be a transition period because some of these people, I believe Jeffrey Siebert, who was at one time at Kings Island, now he's down at a park in Texas. He is one of those park presidents that was retained, and now he's going to be regional, from what I've heard. So it'll be interesting to see because he is a younger person. I think people in their 40s and 50s is younger now. It doesn't seem so old now, but he's one of those people that will be looked to manage a number of properties.
Yeah.
I think if there's anybody capable, it would be in the chain right now. It would be him. But at the same time, to get to that position, the level of talent and experience and tenure that's just being let walk out the door. Wow, that I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, for sure. And let's talk about that walking right out the door piece too, because this
Okay.
week was the official beginning of the Herschend Palace merger. It started this week as
Hmm.
the two are kind of working together as one company now. And IAPA, if you haven't listened to it, go ahead. I'll put the link in the comments down below or in the description. There's a interview with the CEO of Herschend where they talk
Hmm.
about what the future lies for this new chain with 49 parks. 49, of course, they're not all theme parks in the Kings
Right.
Island sense, but aquariums and entertainment centers and 49 little gyms is what the Herschend second generation owner. I'm going to forget his first name, but the gentleman from the Herschend family who spoke at the IAPA meetup in Anaheim, he calls them little gyms. They have said that with their merger, they know it's good things at the beginning are going to be lots of money spending to get the new associates understanding the Herschend model, lots of money spending
Hmm.
to get the legacy Herschend associates to understand the local feel and color of these parks. And they have to do that because they don't want to ruin that. You know, Herschend has always been about being a part of the
Hmm.
community that they're in. And Palace is the same way. So it would be a shame if Herschend would go and throw that all away, and they're not going to. But to learn about that takes time and money and time where you're not trying to make cuts and do these corporate efficiencies. But Herschend can afford that in a greater extent than I think the Six Flags company can because they're family owned, right? They don't have
Hmm.
shareholders to report back to in the end of every quarter and say, yeah, here we lost a bunch of money. They just have the future, and they have the long term
They do.
future and their bank accounts certainly, but they have faith and trust. If they have faith and trust that they can do it, they're the only people that they have to convince, which is not true of Six Flags. So with that being said, I think it's a pretty good world for Herschend right now because
I.
there are people, lots of very
Hmm.
talented, very knowledgeable people who are now for
Hmm.
hire. And
Yes,
that's a really exciting thing, I think, if you're Herschend.
it
So
is.
I don't know.
Now, Clete, also, if you think about it, the same press that is covering the Six Flags Cedar Fair merger, you call them Cedar Flags is for short. My
Yes.
own term. We'll see if it catches on. But the same press that is covering that one has covered the Herschend Palace Entertainment merger.
Yep.
And if you read the headline, excuse me, if you read the headlines and what's in the text of the articles, they're covered completely different.
Yeah.
The Herschend merger is being very optimistic. Very, this is the future. This is a great thing. We're retaining a lot of local feels to everything that's happening. We're getting we're keeping the cultures there. And the Six Flags now, and maybe it's just the articles I pulled up. I was just doing general Google searches, looking them up, and in news presses through Newswatch and or Market Watch, different things, and it's covered completely different. It's all about the reduction of expenses, the 10% reduction in staff, the getting expenses in line. It's all financial. It's all bottom line. It's all dollars and cents.
Yeah.
And Herschend is staying true to it's about the guests, it's about the experience. Now, maybe that's not all of it, but the way that it's being portrayed in the news coverage is it couldn't be more different.
Yeah. So I do want to say, I want to break the mold a little bit here and say that, like, to me, when I'm in a Cedar Fair park, I feel like I'm at home. It doesn't matter what the Cedar
Hmm.
Fair park is. The Cedar Fair parks, legacy Cedar Fair parks, have like unbelievable atmosphere. They're amazing, amazing parks. And Cedar Fair is not interested, I don't think, in losing that in any sense. I really don't.
I I don't think so, Clete, but they're taking on a very. It's not like they purchased a couple parks. They purchased a large or merged with a very large organization that it's going to take some time. And Cedar Fair over the years uh, it has taken some time and it has gotten their culture and their experience a lot better. If you go to Cedar Point, it's almost like a resort atmosphere. It is as close to a destination park as you would have got in the Cedar Fair chain, with the exception of Knott's out in California. Very much a destination area, and they did a very good job of making sure that the local, more regional parks were getting attention also.
Yep.
And when you read some of the things in the headlines now, and it's all going to be about shareholders and making sure that we turn a profit and trim this and trim this and cut this and cut that. It's one of those where if you like some of those parts, you got to be on edge a little bit, thinking, okay, what's this going to look like in a couple of years?
You do. But to be fair, the Six Flags chain has historically been that very corporate minded, very dollars and cents
Hmm.
minded. We're gonna make theme parks. We're a business. You're gonna have fun. Of course, it's a theme park. Come on, but we're a business
Hmm.
and we're gonna make money. We're gonna sell a lot of sponsorships. We're gonna flood you with advertising. And at the end of the day, you're not gonna care because you're at a theme park and like I
Right.
don't care. I would rather look at got to be glued advertisements all day and have a ticket that's half the price than to pay twice as much and not have that advertisement there.
Hmm.
Of course, that's an exaggeration of what the dollars would look like, but you see what I mean.
Yeah.
I think that Six Flags is kind of what Six Flags used to be, right? Is kind of what Cedar Fair is moving towards, and I don't think they're there all the way. Is all I'm really saying. Like, I don't think that the current state of the Six Flags Cedar Fair mega chain is as dollars and cents, as shareholder, as purely business minded as what Six Flags was pre-merger. But maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. We'll see. I only now a number of weeks, or I guess a couple of years ago, we had a guy on. Ryan and Don had a guy on named Eric Bischoff that had a front row seat to the view of the AOL Time Warner merger, and those all predate you by a few years, Clete.
AOL, it's
And
crazy.
yes, AOL. Now there used to be more CDs, if you know what those are, CDs in circulation with the AOL logo on them than music CDs, which is bizarre. Every 5 days, you get another CD to download the AOL software in the mail, just randomly sent to you. So there's two. The media version of the company was Time Warner, who had purchased the Turner operation in Atlanta, which is where Eric Bischoff and the guy who was on the podcast a number of years ago, that's where he was. And when they knew all that this big merger stuff was coming in together, initially there was a lot of excitement. This is happening. There's going to be fresh capital coming into XYZ. And if you look back at that, there's been a number of books written about this, how it was really one of the top 5 mergers to happen in the United States. Turner Broadcasting is now just a channel on some cable channels or cable set networks, and Time Warner still there. Where's AOL? I will contend AOL. I don't know if it exists as a company. I do know that my mother, she still has an AOL email address,
Wow.
but outside of that, I really don't know where is AOL. It literally was a merger of a bunch of big companies, a handful of big companies that collapsed in on itself.
Yeah.
And I don't like mergers anyway because I feel like two companies come together and they try to merge a couple of things together that just simply aren't going to merge. I'm not going to say that's what's happening with Cedar Fair and Six Flags, but at the same time, if there's certain things you liked about Six Flags and it's coming to Cedar Fair and you don't like this over here, then what you liked about Six Flags is going to get wrecked and it's going to sour you on it. Or conversely, if you like Cedar Fair and what they did and how they did it and in the priorities they put together, and now they're merged together and they're becoming more like six. I'm just not a fan of six. I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of mergers anyway, and I just see this as a goodness. What's the selfish thing? What's going to happen to my park?
Yeah, and I think
So,
Kings Island is kind of in a position where it's kind of in the worst case scenario position because it's a park that gets a lot of money spent on it, and obviously makes a lot
mm-hmm.
of money, has great attendance, but it's never going to have the Cedar Point, Six Flags Great Adventure, Six Flags Great America, Magic Mountain Knott's attendance. So
Yeah.
I think Kings Island is kind of, I do see like why you would be a little worried in particular about that, but I do contend still there is not like if Six Flags and Cedar Fair merged, and then there's no other parks, pretty much like all we have left is like the Disney's and Universal's, Hershey Park, and United Parks. If that was all that we had, I would be worried too because they would really not have enough competition. Like there just wouldn't be the competition there. But the good news is, like a million years ago, this guy started this cave touring company that would turn into Silver Dollar City, that would then
Yeah.
in turn purchase, you know, half of Dollywood, and that would then in turn purchase Wild Adventures, then in turn purchase Kentucky Kingdom, and now has 50 parks. And Herschend is not going to sit back and let anything happen, let Cedar Fair's product degrade. And Six Flags
Mm-hmm.
is not going to let their product degrade so that they can't compete with Herschend. I don't I don't have too much fear just because I do think the Herschend merger is really, really helpful for the industry because now we have two kind of alpha dogs, so to speak, that are going to,
Yeah.
keep each other in check. But I do also want to mention Herschend. I just want to say this. I just think this needs to be said at some point. Okay, don't get me in too much trouble for this. But Herschend has like amazing parks in Silver Dollar City and in Dollywood, and Kentucky Kingdom is becoming
Hmm.
up to that standard too. And Kentucky Kingdom was a fabulous park before, but I think they're really starting to care about the atmosphere and the theming and like the characters and so forth,
Hmm.
and that's exciting. Wild Adventures. Uh, I mean, I just think it like I don't know. It's surely Herschend has plans for it. They haven't owned it for probably they've owned it for 10 years or something like that, but
Hmm.
they haven't done a whole lot with it in since they've purchased it. It has cool land and potential. It's in a really cool place. It has cool animals. But at the end of the day, I walked into that park and was like, what is happening? This is not at all a Herschend park. It doesn't feel like a Herschend park at all. And so it does make me wonder what which parks in the new chain will be treated more like Kentucky Kingdom has been treated, and which parks will be treated more like Wild Adventures has been
Yeah.
treated. Which once again, Wild Adventures is a great park. All I'm saying is they just haven't got the investment that Kentucky Kingdom's got, and Kentucky Kingdom is much newer to the chain.
Kentucky Kingdom is kind of an interesting case because there's a lot of places to pull from. You can pull, and they share space a lot
Yeah.
with Holiday World, which let's not forget about them because they're also in this mix and probably see an opportunity on this.
Yep.
But Kentucky Kingdom, for instance, pulls from Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Lexington, Louisville, and I can't believe that here we are in 2025 and Nashville has become the population center that it is, and its last theme park went away in 1997.
Yep.
I I guess I can't believe there hasn't been a park of some sort sprout up there yet.
Well, so what's interesting about that is that Beach Bend in Bowling Green, Kentucky, considers themselves to be like the theme park of Nashville. And to be fair, it's less than an hour away. But I'm with you.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't think Beach Bend is really pulling that much from Nashville just because it's an hour away and it's not
Right.
a resort place where you can spend multiple days. It's a great park, of course. I would love to get out to Beach Bend, but I don't think it's at a weird distance where for families you'd have to drive 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on where you live in
Hmm.
Nashville, round trip, and you're not going to be putting yourself up in a hotel. So yeah, I'm with you. I think, and Memphis doesn't have a park,
Yeah.
and I think like if you put a park in the western suburbs of Nashville, you know,
No, I'm just thinking they have an Elvis themed amusement park in Memphis.
I mean, and that would be great for Nashville too. You
The
put a
imagination
music
could go
themed
great.
park. Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
There, yeah, I think that's a good idea, and also similar to Las Vegas, like I was in Nashville recently, and there's like not a lot to do. Like I know that sounds crazy, but there's really not a lot to do there because there is one thing to do there, and it is to go out, enjoy the
Hmm.
Broadway street music party.
Music Row.
Yes, lots of
Y-
things to
y-
do there, and
okay.
you can watch music, and you could go enjoy a Diet Dr Pepper, but there, that's
Yeah.
kind of it. If you're not into the partying kind of music late night life type thing, or if you're a family, like I say, there's not a lot to do for me because I'm a 7-year-old kid. Um, but if you're a family, I don't know. Is there a lot to do in Nashville? Maybe, maybe not. I think a park would go great there. And that actually brings me to something I wanted to bring up at some point this episode, which is my
Okay.
hot take. This is my hot take. All right.
All
I
right.
think
Lay it on
that
me.
Six Flags Cedar Fair has said Six Flags has said, "Hey, we're gonna close some parks. We're gonna sell some parks." Yep, and then they closed Six Flags America. Not yet, but we know Six Flags or California's Great America's closing. We talked about in our other episode which parks we thought were likely to close. Some Frontier City,
Hmm.
and that sort of park. But I think they're actually pretty likely to announce soon. This just call me crazy. The opening of a new park.
Okay.
And my reason for thinking this is everyone else is doing it. For one, uh,
Yeah.
Universal's announcing new parks all the time. Disney's announcing new parks all the time. There, I mean, all the time is a stretch for both of those. But are right now they are
Right,
doing it,
right.
announcing new parks.
They
There
dominated
are
the headlines for about a year.
Yeah, huge new additions are being added in other parts of the world. So, like in Britain, we just talked last week about how Fantasy Island, they're not building a new park or anything, but they're doing something that's almost doubling the size of their park. That's a big deal. Universal
It
Studios
is.
in Japan announced that their Minions Land is going to expand to twice its size, and that's going to make their park bigger. The, the, the Six Flags Cedar Fair look of, hey, we're going to sell Six Flags America because we, found a buyer for that land or whatever it is. I think the last time a Six Flags Cedar Fair park opened in either of those chains, in the combined chain now was, 1971 with Six Flags St. Louis and Kings
Yeah,
Island in the same year.
yeah.
It's been, that's a long time, and Six
It is a long
Flags
time.
is now they're kind of working with the Qiddiya group to build Six Flags Qiddiya
Right.
City in Saudi Arabia, but
Yeah,
that's not a real
it's
park
gonna
there.
be Six Flags branded, but it's not gonna be a.
Right.
There'll be some financial input there, but it's mostly being bankrolled by the Saudi government, or I don't know if it's by the government, but at least people in that region.
Yeah, it's being heavily subsidized by the government. But also then
Okay.
like that park is not it's a theme park, it's very immersive. It's not the Six Flags typical way. So I do think Six Flags Cedar Fair, with all the cuts they're making, with all the money they're going to get from that head start, I called it, with selling
Hmm.
their land for California's Great America, selling their land for Six Flags America. I think in 2033 or 35, they're in a good position to say, hey, we're going to make this crazy investment and build another park somewhere to put Herschend in check, to make sure they're
Yeah.
reminding people that they are Six Flags, they are Cedar Fair, they are the world's, what in many ways, the world's premier thrill chain. For thrill
Hmm.
rides, they're
Yeah.
pretty much the world's premier chain, and
Yeah.
that's just the truth. And thus, I would like this digression to now talk to now proceed into where this park might be. If this would happen,
Okay.
they have to have a reason. They have to have a market that they think is very untapped and capturable. And there's no reason to spend this money as this big symbol if you're not also going to be sure you're going to make a lot of money off of it. I will put you. I will give three main cities that I think are very possible. The first
Okay.
one is, in fact, Nashville. I thought about
That
that.
that
I think
that makes sense.
Nashville's a great place to do it. Uh, so yeah, there's that. Then my brain starts thinking, well, what about the South? Because like south of Atlanta, kind of Atlanta, if you draw this like circle, around with
Hmm.
Atlanta, and you cut in the whole southeast, we have the parks in Atlanta, Fun Spa, Six Flags, and then we
Right.
have Orlando. And then there's Wild Adventures in Valdosta. That's pretty much it. There's just not a lot of parks. So this is the kind of region I think is the best. So where are we going? Well, Jacksonville. Yeah, Jacksonville's a big city. It doesn't really have any parks. That's a possibility, but I don't think it's the answer. You have to worry about storms. You have a lot
Hmm.
of colleges around, which is great, but ultimately there's a lot of non-family, life there,
Yeah.
and families once again are always going to make you more money. So let's go a little up north. Charleston. Charleston to me is a place that's getting a park. Like at some point in the next 50 years,
Okay.
Charleston, South
Uh,
Carolina will have a theme park.
Now, now, reconcile that with the failed park in Myrtle Beach. It had two different the goodness Hard
Yeah,
Rock Park,
yeah,
which became the Freestyle Music Park.
yeah,
So now that can go into a couple different situations of okay, that was a destination area that had a theme park attached to it,
yeah,
which Charleston is a destination area. It could have a theme park attached to it. But what were the things that happened that made that park unsuccessful from the ground up in 2 years? Two different owners in 2 years,
yeah.
gone.
Yeah, I think the thing that can make Charleston different is that Charleston is
Okay.
really growing a lot right now residentially. And Myrtle Beach obviously has a lot of tourism, but the residential side to keep things going year round just kind of wasn't there. Not to mention with Freestyle Music Park, there was a huge investment made, and it was not supported laterally really at all. And if you have a new chain coming in and saying, hey, we're going to spill this money, they know that, yeah, for the first year, you're going to be working out a lot of kinks and spending a lot of money to
Mhm.
work out those kinks. And it's okay if you don't make money, period.
Right.
You don't pay it out back a dollar of that investment yet. You're still spending that investment for the first year. And I think the new Six Flags Cedar Fair chain, well, I know they have the collateral support. They have, not to mention the talent. We're talking about this talent. I mean, if they play their cards right and keep a good relationship with these people that they're laying off, they put themselves in a position to completely staff another park quite well, at least at the corporate level. You obviously have to find your
You're right.
hosts, your local people to do your line jobs, but I think that's totally possible. I think Charleston's a great place for it.
And it could be very telling that in the press releases that they have with the park presidents that have been, the positions have been eliminated, is that those executives have been laid off. Not let,
Yeah,
the term is laid off, not
yeah,
let go. Now, I don't know how many of them are going to stick around and wait for the next opportunity to come up within the company, but it's not that they were, I don't know, and maybe I'm making too much out of that, but the terminology sometimes is important. The term has been laid off,
it
not let
definitely has
go.
been. Yeah,
Let go is my term, not theirs.
yeah,
So there
yeah.
could be something to that.
The third place I would say that a park could maybe go to is Biloxi, which is okay. Call me crazy, but Biloxi is basically in everywhere. Like Jazzland is, Biloxi is like the
Hmm.
Mississippi equivalent of Mobile, if you're not sure where that is. So it's like in the little bottom part of Mississippi. Touches, kind of a coastal town. If you had a like the natural first thought is to think, well, Jazzland, Six Flags New Orleans died, and it died because hurricanes. And so, what is this park going to do
Right.
that's different? And the primary answer is, New Orleans is like in the
Not building a floodplain.
yeah, right. That's the. I mean, I hate to say it, but
Yeah.
that that was a big risk that they took by doing that. And so this won't have that. It will be, it's Biloxi's not nearly as low as New Orleans is.
Hmm.
And it's also in a cool area, much like Louisville, Kentucky, with Holiday World, where you could build like a Michigan's Adventure Worlds of Fun size park, and it could be tremendously successful. You can pull from Baton Rouge, and people at LSU who want to throw a party and they want to go
Hmm.
out to a park. You got them. You can pull from the families in Biloxi and in southern Mississippi, and you can pull from the families in Baton Rouge and, of course, New Orleans. But also, you get Mobile is like 45 minutes down the road. And while Biloxi itself isn't a town that's like tremendously ginormous, it is in a really good area to pull from a few different population centers. So I think if it were me and I was in charge of this, I would build a park in Biloxi because I think that's
Okay.
so Nashville,
Now,
Charleston, and Biloxi. There's the three places I think could have an untapped theme park market most in the United States anyway.
I wonder. Now, let me throw this into the mix. This is probably something they're thinking about. It brings in the conversation of where to build one next, and it brings in the whole Nashville Opryland situation because now this predates you a little bit. I'm going to go back to 1997 when Opryland did close. Six Flags went on a buying binge of all the attractions that could be moved elsewhere, and they moved them to a property in the middle of Indiana where an old Indiana Fun Park used to be. No, old Indiana Fun Park. I don't remember exactly when it closed, but there was an unfortunate mishap in the park where I believe a little train ride had, and I'm going off of memory, taken a curve a little too fast. Which for these little trains, for it to take it a little too fast is that's they don't go very fast to begin with, but it rolled over on top of a girl who was riding the ride, and I believe that's accurate. And she passed away because of the injuries and because of all the situation that surrounded that. They closed. Well, Six Flags came in and bought that property, and all the roller coasters. I believe they bought three of them as well as some other attractions, some flat rides from Opryland, and they moved them up and deposited them in a field next to where that park was. Now I may have to look up where Old Indiana Fun Park was. I believe it was in Angola, Indiana. I wasn't prepared to talk about this, But and I couldn't tell you where Angola, Indiana is, and for that matter, if that's even where the park was, I'm going off of memory. But Six Flags was probably looking to make that a resort feel type area because if I'm not mistaken, there's not a lot around there. And for Six Flags to come and think they're going to take this over and have Six Flags Indiana, they obviously had some things in mind for what they want to do. And my guess and my theory is that around that time is when between 1998 2000 Geauga Lake became available and they purchased it instead of SeaWorld purchasing it. And the focus went from Six Flags Indiana to developing Worlds of Adventure up in near Cleveland. So,
Yeah.
for what it's worth, then I'm going to take it back in memory lane a little bit for some people who maybe is older, back when dinosaurs roamed, knew that that happened where Six Flags went in and bought a bunch of assets from the former Opryland, which by the way, Opryland Park is now I think there's very few things left over from it, if anything, but it's where the Opryland Hotel is. And I believe the parking lot for the park is now the Opry Mills Mall, if it's still a mall. I mean, malls are kind of going away. I don't know. I don't remember if the Opry Mills Mall is still there, if there's some other iteration of it's there, but that's where the parking lot was for the park. And then the land where the parking lot is for the mall is where the park was.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's really
so
interesting. It does make you wonder about like the 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 attractions at the parks that are going to close. You know, it's
mhm.
like Six Flags America is closing. It's not. What if their plan is like secretly to move the whole park? Like their plan is like we're not
Hmm.
selling any of these rides. We're gonna put them all in storage, and then when we open our new park in Biloxi in 2032, that guy from the attractions group predicted correctly.
Let's see,
That's gonna be
2032. That's 7 years from now. Cleat will be 26, 27.
26. Yeah.
Will you be ready for your first park president? I'm sorry, regional manager role at that time?
Oh, that's right, regional manager. Yeah, if they're interested, if Cedar Fair, if you're interested, absolutely. Of course, of course. But
The
yeah,
regional manager role really only works if you have a Dwight Schrute working for you,
that's right.
assistant to the
That's a big
regional
deal.
manager. Yeah, yeah, you got to have that.
Yeah. Or maybe you have two, and then you assign one of them to each park, and then you instead of calling it regional manager, you just call them park presidents. Oh wait, that never mind. Um, yes, but okay. So we've talked about a lot. We're kind of all over the place. We kind of have some loose ends probably
We
here and
are.
there, but that's okay. We do need to talk about the fact that today is May 28th, and we have not filmed an episode in between May 22nd and today. And May 22nd, of course, was the opening day of one of the biggest days in the history of theme
Yes,
parks, the opening day of Epic Universe. Let's get into it a little bit because
go
for
for it.
for some reason there was no one there. And I think there's two. This is a twofold thing. One, Universal did this thing I respect a lot, a lot. Like I can't say how much I respect this, which is that they said we're not ready to deal with the full capacity first day crowds yet. We're just not ready for it. So they had
Mhm.
really only for the opening day tickets you had to do the hotel or the 3-day vacation package. They didn't sell like single day tickets there, and if they did, they sold a very limited number. So it didn't sell out, but it sold out for non-vacation packages, which means most people are priced out. Like you just can't. So they knew what they were doing. But two, not a lot of people actually did those vacation packages. Like everything had a 15-minute wait except the Battle with the Ministry, which still had a 4-hour wait. But anyway, so yes, so what do you think, David? What do you think about the low crowds at Epic Universe on opening day?
Cleat, I got a theory, and I'm probably wrong. But if you look at the first major theme park to open in the United States
Yeah,
probably since Animal Kingdom for Disney, and I'm probably wrong on that, but the first major park opening from the ground up is
yeah,
Epic Universe. And if you go a
yep.
couple years back to day one for Hagrid's at the Islands of Adventure, it had I could be wrong, a 10-hour wait,
It did. It
a
got to 10
published
hours.
10-hour wait for the ride. So if I'm someone who's going to a family of four, and I'm going to drop over close to $1,000 just to get in the park and eat, I'm thinking, okay, am I going to spend all that money to go to a park for 10-hour waits on everything just so I can say I made it on the first day? No, I'm waiting. So I think that the fact that a lot of people didn't go there is people like, okay, I'm going to it. use my money wisely, and it's not to go on day one where I'm pretty sure, and I was going to be wrong, but pretty sure there's going to be ginormous lines for everything.
Yeah.
Not to mention in the hot Florida sun.
Yeah. So I also think May is just kind of in Orlando, in the Orlando theme park world, a little bit of a lull. There really are no times when the Orlando parks are not exceedingly crowded, but there is definitely a downturn in attendance in between spring break season
Mm-hmm.
and like Memorial Day slash summer. You know, the crazy times
Right.
of summer. So I got to imagine that Universal kind of put it on that right before Memorial Day on purpose because, hopefully, says Universal, that'll keep things a little bit lower than they might have been anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I do just think like the amount of money that Universal said no to by saying we're going to operate, we're not going to sell day tickets, we're going to take this one step at a time so that when we get to full operation capacity, we can be the best versions of ourselves is really cool. It's like really respectable. It's the way things ought to be done in some sense, but dollars
Yeah.
and cents rule all. So I'm a little surprised that they chose to go
And
that route.
I gotta say, if you're gonna go to any of the parks, and now is really the time to do it, because by the time Epic Universe is in a well-oiled machine, and they will be, and they're going to be packed out. They're going to be park solid days, and it's not going to be too far off. You fast forward a couple of years from now, when the Bright Line gets the line going from the airport down to iDrive, and then on to Disney, then on to Tampa. Is at that point, there's probably going to be another couple airlines and a lot more flights coming into Orlando. It's just going to be nuts down there. Might be a good time to invest in some hotels. It
Yeah,
might be empty for a year or two, but it definitely the level of crowds that are at the parks today in Orlando is just going to be a not probably not a fraction, but I mean a lot less than what it will be 5 years from now.
yeah. Well, so that Bright Line too. The Bright Line is a privately held company, and to build their line from
Hmm.
Orlando to Miami, they had to build a lot of that line themselves. But what we just found out like 3 weeks ago, as I'm sure you're alluding to here, but to state it explicitly, is that the city of Florida and its Sunrail has agreed to subsidize this project, or at least they haven't agreed to subsidize it, but they've agreed to do the $7 million study to see if subsidizing it would be worth it. And the answer to that in public transit is always yes. So that's a huge deal. Like that's a really,
It
really
is.
big deal. And it's a really big deal too that line now, because it's not just owned by the Bright Line, is going to run Sunrail trains, which means it's going to run way more often and for way
Hmm.
less money because the Sunrail is publicly funded.
Right.
That's a tremendous difference. Not to mention, of course, there was a little bit of drama where Disney wanted it to go straight from the airport to Disney, and the state of Florida wanted it to go through Universal, and of course, Universal wanted it to go through Universal, and Disney was like, "We're not going to pay, the $1 million or whatever that we were going to pay to
Hmm.
fund that research anymore." It's the final iteration of that is going to include the convention center, and it is going to include Universal and iDrive and Destination Parkway. So yeah, it's going to be nuts. I'm with you.
Do you think that there will be an express lane or express lane, express line that goes direct from the airport to Disney? Do you think that'll be included somewhere? That there'll
It
be an
could
express option?
it could be like just without the stops or a straight different railroad line
Right.
itself. I don't
Without
know.
the stops.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible that Disney says, "Hey, um, we're going to spend some money and tell you that you are going to run an express line for us." So it's
Probably
possible.
depends on the frequency of the trains too.
Yeah, right. Which because the right now the Sunrail is, it only runs from like DeBerry to like Kissimmee, and so it's a really. I'm gonna take the filter off. It's a really really stupid piece of commuter rail because there is it's who is commuting from Kissimmee to downtown? Maybe a few people, but downtown Orlando is small. Not that many people work there. The two most important places in Orlando, Florida, are the parks and the airport, and it goes to neither of them. It's really stupid. And it doesn't go to UCF either. Okay, there you go. There was me being angry. But also, commuter rail, just by its very nature, it only runs like once an hour. So if that's the current state of things, Disney's definitely going to spend some money to say, "Hey, run some more trains, please."
Hmm.
So I don't know. We'll just have to see, and I'm sure there will be some fierce kind of power moves made by both the state of Florida and by the parks
Mhm.
to try to get them, get things to happen their way.
Yeah, and Disney might be, and of course, I mean, you work for Disney, but you're not speaking on their capacity,
Yeah, not in any way.
and we're throwing around a lot of opinions here. I'm wondering if this is one of those situations where the reorganization of the Reedy Creek Development Corporation, I think that's what it's called, into more of a state organized organized organization, whatever you want to call it, might actually help Disney because in working in sync with the state now, they may be able to get more leverage to get aligned to their park. Whereas if it's Reedy Creek negotiating with the state, it might be a little more red tape for them to get that involved. But now that it's like the state working with the state. The only thing is when you get two government entities going together, it'd probably take longer now, but they might be in a better negotiating position. I don't know. That's just me talking,
Yeah, no,
thinking out
that
loud.
I'm with you. That actually makes a lot of sense. So that's exciting. So yeah, I'm sure it will be great with the new. They're calling it the Sunshine Corridor, but I also the timeline on it is to your point there with the two government agencies working together. Who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows what the actual timeline on that will be? So not me, that's for sure.
No, are we done doing the spouting off about things, or
Yeah,
we
I
have more
I
spouting off to do?
I think that's news wise. That is most
Yeah,
of the episode of this most of what we had.
there's other things we could comment on, but I mean we've went for a while on that.
Yes.
Um, how about some questions?
Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. I like that. So,
Okay,
do
I'll
you want
go
to go
first.
first, or you? Okay. All right.
I'll go
Sounds good.
first. So I actually have two questions, but I'll rattle off the one first.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
Given that we have just come through Memorial Day, do you have any fun Memorial Day stories that involves a theme park? Kings Island, Disney, whatever that you might have gone to and enjoyed. Do you have any, maybe not a favorite one, but just an interesting story that happened from it?
Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Um. Wow. I'm not really sure. So I would say off the bat, I remember in 2019. This was a summer I went to Kings Island a whole lot this summer, and I had written. I'm not a big calendar maker. I'm not a bit, but I had made a calendar, and the express purpose of this calendar was to map out days that I thought I could go to Kings Island. And I remember like circling Memorial Day, like 10 to 10. It's open 10 to 10. I'm going, and I'm going to be there all day. And I remember I got there and I rode Backlot Stunt Coaster 26 times that day. One of the greatest marathons for me because
That's
it was not closed.
that's
It was raining and it was open. And like everyone was inside in the fest house, huddled up, and I was just like, gonna keep going. So I spent like 2 hours and I probably got like 20 rides and then had six throughout the rest of the day.
those are Don Helbig numbers.
Yeah, oh, not quite, but yes, I would love that to be true. Yes.
As far as mine, I think after we had the camera shut off last week, I had alluded to this. This is for my story involving Memorial Day specifically. Back, oh goodness, I don't know, mid late '90s. I'm in my 20s, and uh, three of my friends, we came to all guys. We went down to Kings Island for the day on Memorial Day, and much like Memorial Day this year, it wasn't real warm outside. I'm gonna guess it topped out at about 55, 56 degrees that day, and it was raining, which is horrible. But if you like going to parks, you can ride a lot of things during those days. But so we decided later in the day that we would. No one's riding the Whitewater Canyon, the water ride. So let's just go through there. We're already wet, so how are we going to get any more wet? So we go through, rewrite it. We decide, let's try it a second time. And back at that time, I don't think they let you do this anymore. For the life of me, I don't know why. If there's no one in line, they make you get off the line, go back to the beginning, come back into the line to ride again. I don't understand that. If there's no one in line, why are you making me anyway? But back at that time, or at least that day, they let you just continue riding. We rode total the four of us riding on Whitewater Canyon, which is a, what do you call that kind of ride?
A river rapids ride.
River Rapids ride, which has these jets that throw water on people. freezing, by the way. It's 55 degrees, and we're going through this. We rode it 26 times, and one right after, one right after another. And of the four of us that were riding, two of them got off at 23, so
Yeah.
they'd had enough. And at that point, we went on the main street, not Main Street, it's International Street for Kings Island, and bought one of their overpriced Paramount towels to dry off on so we can get in the car. And my hands were so cold, I literally couldn't sign the credit card form. I just had to scribble something there, and then and of course we're all in our 20s, and a couple of the guys, we're not big guys, we're not small guys, but we're big enough. And so I had at that time, it was a BMW 3 Series, which is not a big car,
Oh.
not for four guys. And so and I don't think that the BMW's gone to cloth seats, but at least at this time they only did leather seats, which I think they still only do that now too. But and so being very nervous about my 3 Series at that time, I'm like, I don't want you guys sitting on the on seats wet. So they stripped down to basically underwear in the back seat to ride back. And the whole time I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I hope it don't pulled over.
Oh
This is
yeah,
not
that would
gonna.
be terrible.
Yeah, this is the kind of story that the police officer tells other police officers about.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah,
So did you get pulled over? Or did you
so
make it home?
we didn't know,
Oh, okay, good.
but the windows were fogged up the whole time. We kept having to wipe them down.
Oh right, right. That's so great. That's
Yeah,
so great. Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, they in theory they only open Whitewater Canyon and Congo Falls after Memorial Day because before that it's too cold. Little did they know.
yeah,
After that, it is also too cold.
yes.
All right, that's good. All right, so I got a question for you now, and
Okay,
this is a specific one. But sometimes I'm at parks and I see people walking around in flip flops like all day long. Like they're at a
okay.
park and they're wearing flip flops. What I need your take. That because to me that just seems completely insane. I could never wear flip flops to a park. Are you a are do you do this? And even more, do you understand it?
Yeah, well, my reason for wearing flip flops would be a little different than maybe some people's.
Okay.
If I go and I think there's even a chance I'm going to ride a water ride, or
Okay.
there's rain in the forecast, I there's nothing worse than walking around anywhere, whether you're at a park, you're at a mall, you're anywhere. There's nothing worse than walking around with wet socks and a shoe.
Yeah, it's really gross.
So not only gross, but it'll let you know that the caged up for a while, things tend to smell after a while.
Yep.
And then also getting waterlogged skin, it just you can just barely touch it. It'll feel like a razor's touching it. So if I think there's any kind of any any idea whatsoever that there's going to be any kind of water involved, water ride or
Mhm.
rain, yeah, I'm wearing the flip flops to a park. But
So if you were
other than that, I'm tennis shoes.
okay, right, right. So if you were gonna say you were going to SeaWorld Orlando and you were like, I know I'm gonna want
Okay.
to ride Infinity Falls because it's so good. I love and I love Journey to Atlantis. But you were also gonna spend a whole day at the park. Would you wear flip flops so that you could like you? That means you have to walk around the whole day in flip flops.
I like I said, if there's a hint that I'm going to do anything that has anything to do with water, probably, because even
Wow.
though there's the annoyance of wearing it all day, and I'm sure the arch support and whatever you want to say is awful. I know people who are chiropractors like that. We can't wait until teenagers that wear nothing but flip flops get to be of age because their backs are going to be so screwed up. But still, you're walking around. I can't think of a worse place to do it than wearing tennis shoes with socks in 95-degree, 100% humidity Florida with wet shoes. That
Yeah.
that would be awful. So yeah,
Okay.
if I'm going to SeaWorld, even if I'm riding Infinity Falls once, I'm wearing
Yeah.
flip flops.
Wow. All right. Well,
So now tell me. I explained my position. You tell me what you just don't like the sight of it. What's your
no, I can't wear flip flops. I can't do it. I don't know. I just like if I have flip flops on for more than
you'd
like 30 seconds, it kills me. I die. And
you'd
also,
rather walk around a park with wet socks?
then Then wear flip flops. Yes, absolutely. I would rather not walk around a park in wet socks, and for that reason, sometimes I just don't ride water rides. I hate to say it, but like another cool, move you can do is always like you could take your socks off, ride with wet shoes, and then put your dry socks back on. So at least
And
then,
put them in the wet shoes.
yeah, but it was a little better, right? I don't know. I would still rather have wet socks. If I was gonna ride, like if I was going to SeaWorld and I was gonna ride Infinity Falls, my
Hmm.
move would be go throughout my day, enjoy a nice day at SeaWorld, and then at like 8 p.m. ride Infinity Falls. You don't want it to be the last thing you ride because then you're like dripping when you get back into the car, but ride it
Right.
late so that you're not walking around all day with wet shoes.
But then you end up getting to your 3 series with the people wet and they have to not get on the leather seats.
Yeah, right. And then then maybe you exactly. So, and get on the fastest ride you can right after you ride a water ride. So if you rode what's it called? Silver Mine Water Ride at Knott's Berry Farm in Ghost Town. I have no idea what it's called. That's probably so wrong. But if you ride that, go ride Accelerator. Or if you ride Journey to Atlantis, go ride Kraken because it's nice and open and you'll get, you
Hmm.
know, I think that's big too. Just get that water to just, push off and hit the rider behind you. That's
Or live 5 minutes down the road and it doesn't matter.
yeah, that's a great option. That's a really good option. Um, okay. Well, and one more slight addition to this is like I was working Congo Falls one time in 2022 and I was picking weeds from the mulch beds around the water. So the ride was like locked out and I was, in this area and I I slipped. Um and I I didn't fall like completely into the water. That would be pretty bad. But like I fell in such a way that the whole like right side of my body was soaking wet, and it was like 11 in the morning. It was really not great. But
Plenty of time to dry the shoes out.
yeah, I think if that does happen, the move if you do get shoes that are just cooked, usually the best move is just to throw
Do
your
not
shoes
tell me
off.
that you wear Crocs. Don't go there. That's
Oh,
not an
Crocs are.
option.
I would wear Crocs over flip flops any day. Crocs are way better than flip flops.
Yeah, that costs you a man card.
And then you can take your socks off because you wear socks with Crocs. Obviously, you don't wear Crocs by themselves. You wear them with socks, and then you take your socks off. And then when the shoes are waterproof, so you put your socks back on. Now you're dry. There, we figured out the problem. Still though, 12
Yeah,
hours in Crocs would be a
we
lot.
didn't.
Okay, well I did. So it's too bad. Too bad you
All right,
deprive yourselves of
maybe
obvious solutions.
a little less controversial of a question, and no
Okay,
rabbit hole to get on here. Your favorite, and maybe I don't know. We end on this. What is your favorite flat ride?
my favorite flat ride. I suppose it depends if dark rides are counted as flat rides.
We'll do
Are we,
two categories.
okay, so
Two
my favorite
categories.
my favorite flat ride is Falcon's Fury at Busch Gardens, Tampa.
Okay.
I love a good drop tower. I think drop tower is kind of the highest form. My like favorite model in general, like versus the
Hmm.
Skyscraper, Windseeker types, or generally drop towers. But the best drop tower is definitely Falcon's Fury. I mean, it's one of the tallest freestanding drop towers in the world. And then when you get to the top, they
That's
tilt
just
you in it,
terrifying.
and you're facing
Yeah.
towards the ground. I mean, come on, that is good thrills. So Falcon's Fury for me, and also like if you've ridden a lot of roller coasters, I feel like you kind of. I'm not scared of any roller coaster I ride anymore. There's no even slight part of me that like gets a little stomach drop or nervousness. Like it's just
Hmm.
that part is gone, and it's fine because the rides are still fun and forceful. But drop towers are still and always will be completely horrifying, and that's kind of what makes them so fun. So
Yeah.
Falcon's Flight is my favorite flat ride. What is yours?
All right. You know, now there's only a couple that I have to compare to, but the giant frisbee ones, there's Max Eric Cedar Point, and there's Delirium at Kings Island. I like that. That's it. My only complaint about it doesn't last long enough, and
Yeah,
I understand that it puts a lot of wear and tear on the whole machine and the whole thing at the top. But at the same time, just being drop forced into your seat as you just zoom through the ground, going back up, it's a pretty good ride. Now,
yeah.
I think a second piece of that, and this is one of those news things we're just not going to get into, but I had on the sheet here because Pennsylvania's Hershey Park debuts a new attraction, which is their Twizzlers Twisted Gravity, which is one of those. Cedar Point has one which is one that I've ridden, is where you're seated and the two arms go up in different directions and they just swoop down.
Yeah.
I can't think of what the one at Cedar Point is called, but that
Skyhawk.
I'm not Skyhawk. I'm not typically terrified of scared of any flat ride, roller coaster. I rode that a couple years ago, and it just flat out terrified me. It was, and I probably won't ride it again. But yeah, that's I would say the giant the frisbee ride or probably that ride. Those are probably my favorites
Yeah,
because it's something
SNS.
that can generate the same reaction every time. You never get used to it.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. So SNS Scream and Swing is that model, and they just added one at Busch
Okay.
Gardens Williamsburg too a couple years ago. So that's good. And I love the ones of those at Fun Spot because they have the humongous capacity of 4 riders per cycle, which is just delightful. It's
Wow.
delightful anytime you see like a miniature ride. So yes, all right,
So
good
what
stuff.
about your dark ride?
Dark ride, I would have to say Radiator Springs Racers. It's probably my
Uh-huh.
answer. That ride is so cool. It's so awesome. I mean, it's like it's got thrills. It has the best animatronics. You can it. I don't. I don't care. You can come at me for this because I'm sure this is true. There's no better ride for animatronics than Radiator Springs Racers. Yes, it's a lot easier to build a animatronic for a car than a human being, but that's what makes them better. It looks exactly like the cars do in the movie, whereas even the very best human animatronics, I'm still like, that's an animatronic, although they can be very impressive. So great theming, great thrill. It's yeah. That's Radiator Springs Racers.
Okay. Now, I can go in mine in a couple different directions because if you consider an indoor roller coaster a dark ride, then there's a whole stack of those over there. But for
Sure.
this out, that's too ambiguous. I'll leave that out. As far as traditional kind of family ride, I got to go with Haunted Mansion at Disney, Magic Kingdom. It's
Yeah.
just a great ride, and it's one of those where it also when you're in the hot Florida sun, it's air conditioned, so
Yeah.
it's a nice little journey through there. But also, in this ride that doesn't exist anymore, it takes you to Kings Island. Is the old Tomb Raider. As far as
Okay.
season parks are concerned, that was about as immersive. I mean, it literally it could have been on par with anything that Disney or Universal put up. From the
Wow.
moment you entered the line to the time you got off the ride, you're just immersed in that story. So I would go with that for a thrill ride, dark ride.
Yeah. I
But
hope that building gets used for something besides haunted houses someday.
I'm kind of surprised they haven't.
Yeah. Well, they've
It,
left the
it it
building up.
seems
So
they have, but I would think if they had something in mind, it would have been. I mean, how long's that been closed now?
yeah, a long time. I don't even know. A long time though.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was good. This
Oh,
was good. We had a little bit of a personal digression there at the end, which is always fun.
yeah. And we went on for a while, and there's a one, two, three, four. There's like 5 things we didn't even get to.
That's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
It's way too exciting. It's way too exciting. Well, anyway, thanks for checking us out this week here at the Attractions Group podcast. Let us know what you think the future of the Six Flags Cedar Fair merger is. Let us know if Six Flags Cedar Fair is building a new park. What city is it going in? Biloxi, Nashville,
Yes.
Charleston, somewhere else? Let us know down below. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything from us. We'll be back here next week, next Wednesday morning. David, I'll see you then.
Awesome.